welcome to the GSTL. It is the final day of our pennant race here for round 2. And it's been a pretty good second half of our season so far. It ends today with AZUBU versus Seoul.
AZUBU, of course, in a position where they will have the second spot at the end of the season. That is definitely already for sure. The same is also true for Seoul at the end of the rankings right now. So we have kind of a show match today, but it's a pretty intense one. If you look at the match that we have today, the game's actually really interesting and it could end either way.
You know, we talked about this a lot recently, but it feels like in the second round of the GSTL, we had so many close matches, so many matches that came down to the wire. And it's not just really because of the format change, I feel. It's because some of our weaker teams this season really stepped it up at the end. And Seoul is one of those teams who was just getting dominated time and time again at a terrible indicator, down far at the bottom. And yes, they are still down there at the bottom, but at least they're actually taking names. They almost beat Axiom Acer. They've been doing better and better as time has gone on. Unfortunately for them, though, it's a bit too late.
Exactly. It's a bit too little too late, but they are definitely making a bit of a comeback now, and today they could get another victory here. They have kind of a couple of really good matches. If you look at the lineups today, that's really something that could end in favor of Seoul, especially since, of course, players like Symbol are currently missing from the lineup, participating at the Home Story Cup in Germany, and therefore not able to participate here in the last match in Korea.
Yeah, so this could really go either way. If you look at how well Seoul did against, previously Axiom Acer, you look at AZUBU, and yes, they're in the second place spot right now. They've done pretty well this season, but they're not quite on the same level as Axiom Acer. So maybe, just possibly, Seoul can actually take AZUBU out here, especially because Symbol is not here, and he's really the anchor of the team. Somebody you can pull out in the ace match if it comes to that. And looking at our lineups today, we definitely could go to that ace match.
Yeah, we definitely could. I mean, the starting game today is one where we have our Zerg versus Protoss, and actually, if you look at the lineups, we have the entire time we have always this core consisting of mirror matches, and this is no exception today. We have actually a Protoss versus Protoss, and of all things, a Terran versus Terran. We were just talking yesterday about it, that it's quite rare to see a TVT these days, and now we have another one after we were already blessed with one just recently. But yeah, let's have a quick look at yesterday's match, and this is also the day that we were talking about with the Terran versus Terran on Fruitland, where Innovation was able to succeed over Hack. So just commenting at that game afterwards with like, Innovation is so good.
Yeah, Innovation is so good, and everybody knows it. Axiom Acer takes yet again another win, taking the 4-2 victory there. In our final match, Alicia was able to win the PvP. Pretty crazy match to start things off, but things stabilized for both players, and Axiom Acer takes the win. Today, we're looking at, like you said, an exhibition match, essentially, because AZUBU and Seoul will not move. If Seoul wins, they'll be 2-6, which is still not enough to pass FOU. If AZUBU wins, they'll be 6-2, which is not enough to pass Axiom Acer. If they lose, then StarTale is, of course, still not going to be ahead of them anyways, at 3-5.
Exactly. So today, it's just about winning the games and making a good impression here. And with the games that we have today, we could see a lot of close matches. We have Ragnarok going up against Huangshin. I mean, we're going to see the matches in just a second. And let's have a quick look at the teams in detail first. As you can see, the roster for Seoul is still very small, but we have Last coming back to the team. He already played the last time, where they were nearly able to win their match, and he is part of the lineup today again.
Yeah, Last definitely making a comeback here, and both teams very small compared to teams like FOU and StarTale, and similar size to Axiom Acer, honestly. And in this format, though, it's not a massive deal to be this small. It's not as terrible as in the all-kill format, for example. But you do become a little bit predictable. But since both teams are small here, we're basically seeing the rosters from both teams that you would expect to see, with the exception of Symbol being missing.
Yeah, one of the players that we do not have in the lineup today is Sanae, and for quite a good reason. Sanae, the last time, not really able to impress. Instead of him, we see Huangshin today in the roster. But here we have a closer look, of course, at the lineup of Team AZUBU, where we, amongst others, have Center today playing again.
Yeah, Center is playing again. Former TSL player. So many former TSL players on AZUBU. They're all out there floating around. And here's a shot of some of our players. Boom Boom looking ready and happy. And Center, on the other hand, not so much. Getting a little bit serious there.
Yeah, Senna, the last time when we saw him, when actually Supernova and Symbol were missing, came really through for the team. Today he has another chance. He's the player who goes up against Last, therefore we will have a Terran versus Terran for him. And on the Seoul bench, on the other hand, I mean, you know those players. We have Dia, the champion of the Premier League, Haiva and Trap, really great players, the star players of the lineup, and then Yeongju, Sanae on players like Last, and of course also Huangshin to round it up.
Yeah, Huangshin to round things up, coming in representing Quanic here. And Youngju, there's a shot of him there on the right. He's playing today in a ZVZ, but we have to see if he proves himself. Haiba looking like he's praying to some sort of higher power he thinks out there. I don't know what he was doing there, but Youngju is actually, I think he brought some family members to the studio today. I heard rumors of that, and everyone was talking about him today, but he goes up against Sleep on Derelict Watcher, and he has not really impressed yet either, similar to Sanai, so hopefully today maybe he shows some different colors.
Patience versus Dia is going to be the Protoss versus Protoss, and then later down the road we have matches like Boom Boom versus Trap, which would actually be a really great game. I would love to see that, especially since Boom Boom was already able to dominate in the matchup against Protoss, against this particular player. And then we have Supernova going up against Haiba in a potential Terran versus Zerg on Fruitland if it goes all the way. So it would be really nice to see all those games.
Yeah, it certainly would be. And I think we might get that treat just based on the matchup we've seen already. So I'm excited for this one, really, even though it is kind of, arguably not that important for these teams. I think Seoul really wants to take that win and prove that they almost beat the team that's ranked first, and if they can beat this team, they beat the team that's ranked second at least, And so even if they're at the bottom, they're like, well, we came back, we improved our team, we did beat them in one series, we did that, so...
For me, it's just really important that we will see the 5th map, because this is one of the games that I love this. We saw in the first round of the GSTL this season, Boom Boom going up against Trap, and back then nobody really thought that he could do it. Trap with such a stellar record in Protoss versus Zerg, Boom Boom a player that we hadn't seen at the time for a little bit. And then suddenly Boom Boom dominated Trap. He completely dominated him. He didn't leave him a chance. He just crushed him. And he was able to win the entire team match for his team. Then he came out as the last player. So Boom Boom with a great showing there. And as it happens, today they are meeting again. And it would just be such an intense match between the two of them, I'm sure of that. So I would love us to go into at least the 5th map and see this game here.
Yeah, that would be epic. That match is actually probably my most highly anticipated match of today. The second one probably being Youngju's match, because he's just basically been stomped every single time, and I'd like to see him do something a little bit different today, especially because he's got family in the studio to come and watch, and maybe that can actually motivate him, and that would be really, really cool to see. If you have somebody in the studio, whether it's a girlfriend, one of your best friends, or one of your cousins or something, it can actually really be motivating, because you've got somebody very close to you actually watching you doing what you do.
It helped life yesterday when his girlfriend was in the studio and I was watching him play, and he took that win with ease. But let's see what we have today. Our opening match, of course, as already mentioned, is going to be the game between Ragnarok and Huang Xin, so a Zerg versus Protoss that we are starting things off with. And I feel that Ragnarok is probably the player who is a little bit favored there, even though Huang Xin has the better record. The problem about it is, if you look at it, that Huang Xin actually has played so many games against foreign players that kind of takes away a little bit from his win ratio.
Let's be honest, guys. Like, Koreans are the best in the world, bar none. So when you talk about beating foreigners, it's just when you're talking about players who beat only Koreans, the stats are apples and oranges.
There's a big reason why in the top 16 of the WCS ranking we see 15 Korean players.
And the 16th player trained in Korea for a long time and tied with a Korean player and had to beat him. So it's like there was almost 16 Koreans, and Naniwa is, trained with Koreans for so long that he's got a little bit of Korean in him, you could argue. So
Koreans, that's why one of the reasons why we kind of favor it, or why we look with a bit of more emphasis on the stats against Korean players in comparison to a Korean player that goes overseas and plays against foreigners for quite some time. So definitely Ragnarok, the one who stayed in Korea for longer than Huang Xin, if you look at that, and if you look at the games played, and therefore, of course, there's also more games played against the players that stay here.
Yeah, the Koreans basically going overseas to conquer the Europeans, the Americans, try and take their money.
Get that easy money.
It's funny because when a lot of Koreans first went overseas, a lot of Korean players who stayed in Korea criticized them, saying, oh, you want the easy path, you want the easy money. But now they're jealous that they didn't go and take that easy money themselves, because it's so hard in Korea. You have a Korean player playing in another league, and it's almost like that player looks unbeatable when he plays in Europe, but he can't even qualify for Code A. So it's a huge skill gap difference.
Yeah, that's definitely true, and this is something that just always comes through. Ragnarok being the starting player today, of course, for Team AZUBU, as you can see. He has not played any matches against Huang Xin just yet. But talking a little bit about Ragnarok, we're going to repeat that as soon as we jump into the game. He's currently with a 57% win ratio against Protoss offline in Heart of the Swamp. in a pretty decent shape. Was able to defeat opponents like Swagger and Cygnus in the Challenger League that took place just a few weeks back. And really good game so far. Was able to win against Avenge, against Puzzle, has losses against Hero and Pick Baby. So, very solid performance.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's good. Coach Lee from TSL was saying he was going to do big things. He's been through quite a few teams. He was on LGIM before he moved into AZUBU. And he's a good all-around Zerg player. Really, really like him and his style. And like you said, he's favored just simply because he's beaten higher caliber players in this matchup recently. Huangshin came out, I think it was 2 weeks ago, to play, and he did not impress. He's not won a single GSTL match. He's only played 3. 0% win ratio in the GSTL, but he does well overseas, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, he doesn't have too many games played against Protoss. He won against Bly with the 2-0, took down Vicious and Reina. That was back at DreamHack Bucharest. And he lost matches against most of the Koreans. He lost against Yu-Gi-Oh!, against Sleep, and against Life. Granted, those Zerg players are definitely names that are quite known, but still, there is definitely a huge difference between him playing against a foreigner and playing against a Korean. Against Koreans, he didn't win a single game. Against foreigners, he didn't lose one. So,
yeah. He's like in purgatory almost, if you think about that. He's like just better than the foreigners, but worse than the Koreans. He's in between, but maybe he can take a best of 1 here on Whirlwind. He's looking like he's trying to motivate himself there in the booth. He's getting focused. Ragnarok looks like he thinks it's going to be an easy win.
Well, Whirlwind is going to be a big map, and if you are going up against an opponent in Whirlwind, you usually always expect that there might at least be one Zerg player in the matchup. So Huangshin definitely knew what he was in for it. So one of the games where both players, of course, could prepare quite a bit with the format that we have in the second round of the GSTL season here. This is one of the advantages that you have as a team and as a player, and that's something that both of them have to show now.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to me that Huangshin chose this map because he's basically either going to be facing Ragnarok, Sleep, or Boom Boom, all really, really strong Zerg players, especially Boom Boom in the matchup Zerg versus Protoss. So he took a pretty ballsy move to pick Whirlwind, and he must have something prepared. He must feel pretty confident about the map, saying, you know, hey, coach, I really want to play on Whirlwind. Can you put me there?
He's in pretty high spirits there.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure he's talking to himself or singing, or I don't know what he's doing, but like he's happy.
Yeah. Ragnarok, on the other hand, looking pretty serious, but like again, I think he looks almost like he's just, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to walk out of the booth, and I'll get that first win easy peasy.
That's the one reason why I don't think there's a lot of banter going on in the lobby right now, because Ragnarok is just looking at things and he's not even cracking a smile.
Well, so the game lobby's already loaded, man. They're like already in game.
Huangshin is just talking to himself, and I don't know what he's telling himself, but apparently it's pretty funny. We are going into game number 1. We have Zerg versus Protoss here at the GSTL Season 2 2013. AZUBU going up against Seoul, brought to you by Colin Wolf. And starting to the top right, we have a very solid Zerg versus Protoss player. Starting for Team AZUBU, it is
AZUBU Ragnarok.
14 maps played against Protoss in Heart of the Swarm offline. He won 8 of them against opponents like Swagger, Cygnus, Avenge, and Puzzle. Pretty solid player. He's going up against the Protoss today. The starting player for Team Seoul.
Quantic Huangshin.
And as mentioned already in the pre-game talk, Huangshin, a player that was not really successful in the past against Korean Protoss. This is kind of his Achilles heel. If you look at his stats in general, he has 13 maps played and he won 9 of them. That leaves him with a 70% win ratio, nearly or close to at least. But then you go down that match list and you realize that against Korean Zerg players, he didn't win a single game. He lost against Life, he lost against Sleep, he lost against Yu-Gi-Oh! All his wins were against foreign players. Most of them at DreamHack Bucharest in 2013. That was back in September when he defeated Bly, Vicious, and Reina without losing a single map. He has another 2-0 victory against Penguin that was actually in spring at the MLG Pro Circuit. So against Koreans, absolutely not as successful as he is against foreigners. Now he can prove against Ragnarok that foreign and Protoss players are not the only Protoss players that he can beat. But of course Ragnarok has other plans.
Yeah. Now Ragnarok can actually be a little bit annoyed about what build he's had to choose now that he comes over here and sees the Nexus first. He went pool first, expecting a Forge, which is basically what he had to do. So what Huangshin has already accomplished here is just forcing the pool first by setting his probe, because if he tries to go hatch first and there is a Forge by chance, then he's going to get cannoned, so he doesn't want that. So now he's not going to be able to get anything done with his Zerglings just because Whirlwind is so big. So When you talk about the way this game opens, a slight lead for Huangshan just because he gets away with the greedier Nexus here.
As a Zerg player, what you basically have to do is not watch SOS play, because if you do, then you will just wake up screaming in the middle of the night.
Don't ever watch
you expect cannons under your bed, next to your bed, like everywhere in the wardrobe, and it's like, oh, I heard a cannon beam. There's a cannon right there. So SOS games, I mean, it's really funny. Like we saw the final there at WCS at the season finals where Jaden was playing against them, and it was kind of incredible to just see how SOS always gets away with his cannons, and this guy is just so good with it. People talk about it being cheese, but if you do it this constantly against Zergs and you get away with it, then there's a huge proportion of skill also.
Yeah, it's definitely not cheesy.
Well, it's a little bit cheesy.
Well, it's
a little bit.
It certainly can be cheesy. But he's practiced it well. He's mastered it. And it's an aggressive way to deny Zerg. I mean, back in the day, we used to have players put 2 pylons at the bottom ramp, put a cannon there. People said that was cheesy, and things have evolved quite a bit since then. Probe does go down, but not before seeing the third hatchery that goes up before the 4-minute mark, just slightly. So a pretty quick third hatchery, the normal response to seeing a Nexus first and very delayed gateway.
I mean, a couple of old schoolers there might remember the games where Terran players were able to actually block the ramp at the bottom with
double
two
bunker,
bunkers, and then we had like a map change, and ST was playing, and suddenly there was a different map version.
Against Björn, man, I remember that.
Exactly, against
Do you guys
Björn.
remember Björn?
So, Ghost King.
Yeah, Ghost King.
Back then against Ghost King, and Ghost King suddenly realized that the map version that was being played allowed him to double bunker that ramp, and he got basically a free win.
There was one game also where it was Björn as well. He did a 2x proxy, and the Zerg player just decided to try to make a one-base play. There's a Stargate wall, and he killed the rocks at the bottom of the ramp, and then bunker walled it, and made a big bunker wall at the bottom, and contained the Zerg and won the game.
Yeah, we had a couple of really crazy games back in the days. But what we have here now in the opening is a Stargate as the tech choice for Huangshan. So right now he's in a position where he can use that Oracle.
Yeah.
That improved Oracle. Blizzard said, you know what, it's not fast enough for us. We wanted to do even more damage.
Souped up that Oracle, put a new engine in it, and everything.
It's basically a tuned Oracle.
Yeah, it's got
It's pimp my
Oracle.
Pimp my Oracle, exactly. That's what we saw there.
We
has a couple of bumper stickers and a new suspension as well.
So you can accelerate while you accelerate.
And the most amazing thing about the pimped Oracle is actually that we now have a new music system in there as well. Those pilots are so happy they're bouncing the entire day.
Yeah,
it's actually great, and that causes them to be a little bit faster, a little bit more reactive. The acceleration time has been increased, the speed as well.
Also, there's an Xbox in the back.
Exactly, there's an Xbox in the backs as well, and I mean,
it's also modded so you can play StarCraft on the Xbox as well. That's how it's done.
So it's pretty awesome.
He's actually following this up with a Void Ray, and if you have the Oracle do some harassment and draw the Queens away, maybe the Void Ray can do some follow-up damage. He's going to go for that Overlord right away. And the Void Ray follow-up will also be good defensively to hold this third base, so I like this opening by Huangshan quite a bit. He's going to get one drone.
Basically, if you go for an Oracle and for a Void Ray, this is like someone who loves cars buying himself a Ferrari and then a Hummer.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to have both.
Yeah. It's just because he's getting this nice new house and he wants to park both outside, so no roaches are going to trespass on him. And as you can see, he's queuing up the Void Rays, and this is not for a timing. This is just a defensive measure. Finds the Overlord, will use that prismatic alignment to make quick work of him. And the Oracle continues to deny creep as well, actually, on the bottom of the map. And when the Void Ray comes, it's going to be even easier to do that.
Yeah, and apparently Huangshan was talking to Alicia quite a lot, because he's not only going for one Void Ray, he's already cranking out the second here.
Yeah.
And let's see how Ragnarok reacts to this. Void Rays have been causing a lot of trouble for Zerg players in huge numbers, but already the Hydra Den coming up here for Ragnarok, and he's starting with a +1 attack upgrade.
You know, he's also taken a fourth base, a little bit hidden to the south. This is not going to be something that Huangshan expects. If he knew, he would actually just be able to kill it with his Void Rays on the Oracle. There's no way to stop it. There's no creep in that direction. But if he gets away with it, then Huangshan might be, basically under false pretenses, thinking he's massively ahead with this early third base that he got for free, but it's actually just not true.
We also have a Spire coming down now for Ragnarok, which was not scouted yet, and if you get a fourth base and you get the gas there, you could actually start to counter those Void Rays with a couple of Mutalisks.
Yeah, Mutalisks would be a great choice, and I think that's probably what we're going to see.
Just definitely, the problem is really the numbers. You need a lot of the Mutalisks to actually deal with the Void Rays, but it's just the better option compared to the Corruptors, it's just being taken apart. So if he gets that 4th up in the gas income, then he might be able to just crank out the numbers that he needs.
And a few Hydras here are actually going to make it so the Oracle can't stick around. He still has no idea about the 4th. He's not even made an attempt to scout it, and the Hydras actually could catch this Oracle. He does find it, and the improved speed just barely enough. He's got 24 hit points left. I don't even think he microed that. It just ran away on its own AI a little bit too fast. But this is the crucial moment. Can he actually do damage with these Hydras? 2 additional cannons being added. They will finish in time. I don't know about the drones. I don't think they want to be here. They're actually going to go down and man into that 4th base.
They're going to go on their knees getting the gas right now. If you are a former Warcraft 3 player, then you remember Huntresses and how annoying they were, especially in a 2v2 when there's an undead player granted the Unholy Aura to them. Oracles right now, probably on the same level and exactly the same speed, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, double forces here actually lock the Zerglings inside, so they can actually take some extra cannon fire. Photon overcharge here as well. The Oracle, nowhere to be seen, could actually be somewhat useful in the defense against the Zerglings here. Another force field, again, making sure he traps the Zerglings in, but the wall is not so tight. Now he pushes it back, and Watson stomps this down.
The Voiders are there to the rescue, but now come the Mutalisks into play, and this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. 13 already at the time, and the Zerg player is currently on 8 gas, and that will help him quite a lot to even build additional ones. In addition to that, Ragnarok immediately throws down an Infestation Pit that allows him to go into Hive, and this could get very, very nasty. The Mutalisks have been spotted, but if they get into the main base, for example, there's not a whole lot to defend against this. There's only one Stargate, gonna take quite some time to get Phoenixes out there, so Wang Xing has to be really careful now.
Yeah, he saw this, but I mean, he doesn't have a ton of cannons up in the right spot. You know, there are a few aggressive against Hydras at the front.
There are 3 Stalkers, that's all that he has.
That's all he's got. I mean, you have 4 Void Rays, but they're a bit too slow. This Colossus is way out of position. Where are the force fields? Not where they need to be, that's for sure. There's the good one, but it's way too late. Damage has already been done.
Ragnarok is
in the main.
He's moving in the main. He's going in at the 3rd base. He's taking out so many units already, focusing that Nexus. This one Void Ray is definitely out of position, and he could even fight this if he wanted to. He snipes the Void Ray and then moves back. He is in a pretty decent spot, taking a 5th base now as well. The Mutalisks just bouncing between the bases, and they could turn around and take down the Voiders if he wanted to.
Yeah, he really could. He's playing it a little bit extra safe, but he's still done the damage he wants. The Hive, like you said, is on the way, and that's great for him. He's got the 4th base up uncontested, 5th base even nearly complete. Adding more Hydras, getting the upgrades for his Zerglings and the Mutalisks as well. And, you know, he still hasn't made cannons here. He doesn't have the resources. He's trying to commit to getting Phoenixes, more Stalkers out, so the cannons are a low priority, but the Mutalisks definitely happy about that.
And the problem for him being is that Ragnarok is just not sticking with that tech. The Hive, as you mentioned, is underway, the 5th base coming in, so he can tech switch anytime he wants, and that is very dangerous now for Wang Xin, especially since he's stuck on 3 bases. So in a sheer numbers game, Ragnarok already having a slight advantage. A pretty big advantage, actually. He's also 70 supply up.
Yeah, 70 supply up here, and the Zerglings, on the other hand, not getting a whole lot done. He has 41 of them, but they're just basically the buffering zone here, trying to protect the Hydras so the Hydras can do the real damage to the back. If there were not a transition here out of this tech, I would be concerned, but since he has those Vipers on the way, he has the Hive tech, he's looking very much totally in control of this game. There's never going to be a 4th base for Wang Xin in this game. It's not going to happen. He's not going to let it happen.
Yeah, and you know, with only a few Phoenixes in the game, at any point Ragnarok could just go for additional Mutalisks and throw that out there and try to overwhelm his opponent. He's using the ones that he has in the main base and is just trying to clean up even more Harvesters. The Phoenixes, of course, already on their way back now that they realize that, but more drones are going down, and at some point those Phoenixes will be utterly useless since we don't see Ragnarok committing to Mutalisks anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenixes are not very useful against Vipers because the Vipers already get their grabs, and you try to run the Phoenixes forward, they're going to get killed by Hydra and get bungled and things like that. I'm just a little bit disappointed we did not see cannons in the main base. You know, that's actually something he definitely should have considered doing because the Mutalisks are still out there. He's now down to 58 probes for 3 bases, not ideal, and it's definitely going to be even worse when he wants to take a 4th base, if that even happens, because that's basically just only a dream. With all the units that he has out on the map right now, Ragnarok can deny any 4th base that he scouts.
Ragnarok is now on 200 supply and just building up that bank that will allow him to tech switch anytime he wants and reinforce immediately. At 31 lava, he's actually sitting pretty, and now he's moving in again with this many Hydralisks. He's going for the Yanks and all those Colossi. I need to be careful, and here we go. The first Yank with the Viper, and immediately it's gone. The same fate is also, I mean, the Void Ray dies here immediately, and this is not looking good for Wang Xin right now.
I look at the upgrades. He's about to have +2 for his Hydras. +2 just started for Wang Xin. Very late on that. There goes another Void Ray. He does target down a Viper, but it's already done his job. Blinding Cloud as well on the Stalkers, and how can he fight this? He just can't. The Phoenix is being taken out here, just kites back against those units, and DT's a little bit helpful here once that Overseer goes down, but actually the DT's all died.
The DT's died, and now the snipe on the Nexus moving in. There's only one Colossus. He doesn't even care about it. He snipes the Nexus. 2 base mining now for Huangxin, and at the same time Ragnarok moving back for now, and 24 Mutas. Exactly what I mentioned earlier. The switch into Mutas, now that the Phoenixes are gone with only 1 Stargate, and immediately change Bam Mutalisk, and this is going to be the final blow. There is no question about it. Huangxin will not be able to defend against those Mutalisks without having any significant anti-air.
Definitely not. I mean, those Zealots right there, the Sentries, definitely not going to be useful. They're going to be useful at blocking each other in. That's about it. DT spot the... I mean, he might actually just type DG after he spots those with his DTs because there is no answer here. Doesn't have enough money. He doesn't have the gateway production. He yanks a Colossus unnecessarily, but who cares? He's making style points here. He can do whatever he wants. He's killing every last probe, and that is going to be all she wrote for game number 1.
The one Zealot there that's playing bouncer at the wall and doesn't leave anyone in. That is the most exclusive club that I've ever seen. Not even the fellow Zealots are being passed. So in this situation, there's nothing he can do anymore.
It's called Club GG, man.
Yeah, Club GG. That's exactly what we're seeing here right now. Another snipe in the main base. There comes the yank. Bye-bye Colossus. Only a few Stalkers left. And those bad boys are not able to deal with the Mutalisk. He snipes also the Dark Shrine. Everything just taken out, and there's the GG.
Club GG would not recommend. Do not go. Getting some bad reviews. Saw that bad reviews online.
Yeah, they're trying to be too much elitist. Well, there we have Ragnarok with another victory over a Protoss player, solidifying his win ratio there. And for Huangxin, unfortunately, the trend continues. Not successful against Korean Zerg players.
No, definitely not. Not successful against any Korean players at all in the GSTL as well. Now putting his total GSTL record 0-4. Not taking a single map, 0% win ratio, and Soul Coach he's not happy with this, although he still has that cool watch that I mentioned yesterday.
There was no pressure actually by Huangxin. He could not do anything against all those bases. Ragnarok always the one pulling the punches.
He needed to check for
5 bases. He had another one at the bottom right, and he got so much gas. This entire income that he had was just used beautifully. First wave of Mutalisks already occupying the Protoss player, then tech switching it up, never stopping, going into Hive right away, having the Vipers ready. And then when Huangxin stopped building Phoenixes and lost the few that he had against the Hydralisks, Ragnarok just looked at the game and was like, you know what, you have no anti-air. Here, 24 to 30 Mutalisks. What are you going to do against them?
I think he forgot to build Twilight Council too. Like, the Twilight Council, when you build the Void Rays, you cut a Void Ray for a second to add the Twilight Council. You don't rush Blink, you don't get charged, you just have the Twilight Council. So you can start +2 on time, which he did not do. Even though he had a Twilight Council, he started it way too late. And he never got Blink, obviously, until like after everything he owned was dead. Then he started Blink. I don't know what was going on with that, but certainly not the right timing there. Never checking for the 4th base.
Yeah.
After he defended that first Hydralis aggression, I think he thought, oh, I'm so ahead now, I got this. But no, there's a ton of Mutalisks coming his way because that 4th base was up for free, totally unscouted, uncontested.
Yeah, definitely a huge problem there for him. And
he could have easily shut it down with just 1 Void Ray. It would have killed it, or even 2 with the Oracle. It's too far away from the
It's such a big map, so scouting this, it was definitely a risk by Ragnarok, but for Ragnarok it was just an investment in minerals, and he said, like, if you see it, I can cancel.
Yeah, he can just do something else. Yeah. But he at least have tried to force that cancel instead of letting it go. It was a smart move by Ragnarok, but he had that Oracle over there, did not try to scout. We're going into a totally different matchup entirely now, though.
Sleep is going up now against Youngju, playing a Zerg versus Zerg here. One of 3 mirror matches that we have today. And that is gonna already a little bit determining the fate of the team today. Youngju, a player who can definitely take a map of a big name. Sleep is someone who you can beat, and he has to do something because right now, Seoul in a position where they are quite. I mean, they have a lot of experience this season with being behind in the series.
Yeah, they have made some comebacks, but not many of them leading to wins. And I gotta say, some of the weaker players in GSTL have really stuck out as being weak by taking like no wins. Like Huangxin, for example, you just saw, he's 0-4. He only played 4 games, but didn't take a single win. And Youngju and Sanai, they're in that same club. And
no, not really. I mean, Youngju got a win against like Seed, and then he lost 2 matches. But if you look at his opponents, he lost against Innovation and Bomber. I don't think you can really fault him for that.
Well, that's true. That's a good point in talking about who his opponents are. And he can definitely take a best of 1. He's 1-4 in GSTL, but he had really tough opponents. And he did beat Seed, which is quite notable to be able to beat such a Protoss player.
Against Zerg this season, he was only matched up against Curious, and that's the game that he lost, but now he gets another chance in a Zerg versus Zerg. We're jumping into a 5-minute break, and then we're going to find out if Yongju is able to bring Soul back into the game, or if the AZUBU player is able to put the second point onto the scoreboard for his team. See you guys in a few.